All right, guys, you're here with Josh Thompson for Punk's Opinion. It is Sunday, and producer Dave is playing around with the volume. So, lovely. Right into the introduction, producer Dave decides to kick up the volume on some YouTube clips. I guess realistically, the only thing that we don't have a whole lot to talk about this week. Sammy and I will cover UFC that happened last night. We will also talk about Patricio Pitbull and Emmanuel Sanchez for Bellator's main event in Tel Aviv. That was an amazing fight. We will cover that as well tomorrow. So today, I'm just here to really kind of talk about controversial shit because I'm such a controversial motherfucker. But I think that the main thing that we're going to probably talk about is Cynthia Calvillo missing weight. I want to say about 2 pounds. Almost fainting on the scale is what it looked like, or she couldn't keep her balance or stay standing. I mean, it looked like she was kind of wobbly legged. I mean, look, do I doubt that she was struggling to make the weight? I have no doubts whatsoever. She didn't make the weight. Did I doubt that it was probably a really rough cut for her? I have no doubts about that either. The one thing that I will doubt, and if you listen to what we just had Dwayne Ludwig on for our episode 100 yesterday, went up last night on YouTube and all the other forums, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Google Play. If you actually, you sometimes will wonder when people get hurt. Are they really hurt in a fight? Do they get rocked and then they just cover up, and they sometimes will not act like they're knocked out, but they will just basically give in to, selling it a little bit more. So they want out. They want out of there. Then the ref will come in and stop it. Now, with Cynthia Calvillo, I think honestly that she just didn't want to cut any more weight. She had to be careful with the fact that she didn't want to faint or do anything that would cause her to faint or anything along those lines, because if she did, there's no way they were going to let her fight. But it is kind of a slap on the wrist, though, or not a slap on the wrist. It's kind of lets you know that the UFC should have done more. I mean, my personal opinion is that they shouldn't have let her fight. If she was weak-legged, was barely able to walk to the scale, she could barely stand on the scale, and she was struggling, and she still didn't make weight. She still missed weight. So
you saw Buckles talking about how she had her period and that affected.
Yeah, no, and look, that's another. We talked about that yesterday with Dwayne, and I've trained a couple women fighters that were Golden Gloves girls and kickboxing girls. And look, it sucks. It does. And I understand. I will never understand what it's like to go through that. But I do understand as a coach that there's nothing you can do about it. Like you can't like magically pull water out of their system when they're on their period. And when they're on their period, they bloat, they hold water. There's nothing you can really do about it. It's an unfortunate thing. There should be something that we should try to do for that, but I don't know if there really is. Realistically, there is anything. And we talked about it yesterday with Dwayne Ludwig, and some of the women have talked that I've trained have talked to me about that when they get closer, sometimes they don't even get it. And sometimes their schedule is completely messed up. Majority of them are not on birth control, because birth control sometimes will give them either mood swings, will make them emotional, or will most likely make them carry or hold water as well. So that's why they don't really take birth control while they're in training camp. But a lot of the women that I have trained have told me that. So I feel like there's nothing she could have done there's nothing she could have done probably any further, given the fact that she had her period. And that's kind of exactly what happened to a couple of the girls that I had trained. They were close to weight, but just the last pound and a half, they just couldn't get off. And I remember going in the sauna and sitting with them for 30, 40 minutes. And then we came out and they'd only lost like a quarter pound for 30, 40 minutes. And that's unheard of. I mean, almost anyone, even if you're sucked dry, you can still lose like maybe a half pound for 40 minutes being in the sauna, and even sometimes wetting your lips will sometimes give your body the perception that you're hydrated, and it will cause you to sometimes be able to sweat a little bit more. Wetting your lips, put a little bit of some water on your head or your neck, cool towel or something to make your body feel like it's cooled down. Therefore, you can go ahead and sweat some more. I don't know exactly what she did or how she did it, but I have worked. There's another little bit of controversy behind this. Is that I have worked with Lockhart and Leith. Lockhart and Leith worked with me for my last 4 fights. They helped me make weight. I mean, not that I ever had a problem making weight. It was probably one of the easiest things I ever did in my professional career. Was making weight was never an issue for me.
Did you ever miss?
No, I never missed. No, it was actually, I even took a fight on 2 weeks' notice against Kid Yamamoto, and I actually cut from 170 all the way down to 143 in about 2 weeks. Look, but then we're talking about women, though. We're not talking about men. I feel like men can almost always suck it up and do it. It's a matter of if they want to or not. You know, did they take the precautions, standard precautions to try and get their weight down throughout their camp? What did they do the last 2 weeks? Did they hydrate properly? Did they learn to cut the weight properly? I mean, it really comes down to, did they want to make the weight? Did they think that they were going to be able to make the weight? And then when the fight got closer and the weight wasn't coming off as much as they thought, that, you know, I had done that a couple of times, and it was close to me. It wasn't so much that I was close to not making weight. I tried to cut too much weight in one day. I think I had cut like 14, 15 pounds in like 8 hours. And it was just one of those things where I didn't let I should have cut some weight the night before, and then went home and slept, maybe floated a pound or two, woke up, seen where I was at, and then cut maybe the next 7 to 8 pounds. You know what I mean? But instead, I didn't do that. What I did was I woke up the morning of the weigh-ins. Weigh-ins were at 4 o'clock. It was like 7:30, 8 a.m. I got up, had a little bit of food and a little bit of hydration, and then I went and started cutting weight. And about 5 hours in, my body just stopped sweating. You know, so I don't know exactly how she decided to do it. I don't know but I do know that I have worked with Lockhart and Leith. They do a very good job at what they are very good at what they do. There was a lot of things from Mike Dolce that were said back and forth. Now, the rift between the two, I think, is, you know, there was a lot of controversy surrounding Dolce when I think Lockhart and Leith had first came into the business and teaching people how to cut weight or trying to help people cut weight or be on task to make weight. And during this whole thing, the whole BJ Penn stuff had spilled over into with Mike Dolce, over BJ being very vocal about how he didn't like working with Mike Dolce because Dolce had tried to give him fat burners and other little things. And look, and I'm good friends with BJ Penn. I know Mike Dolce. I've never worked with Mike Dolce, so I don't know the extent of how he does this. Dwayne Ludwig was on here yesterday saying that he had worked with him several times for multiple fights and said that nothing like that was ever given to him during his weight cuts. And I know that Dwayne had cut a lot of weight because I had fought Dwayne in Strikeforce. And when I had fought Dwayne in Strikeforce, that was one of our conversations between each other. We were always very civil with each other, but he had said that he had always had a hard time making weight, and you know, and it was just one of those things that he had always had cut quite a bit of weight. So all those things adding up to what's going on with Cynthia Calvillo, but the whole thing comes down to there's a couple things. First, let's start off with it's the UFC's responsibility to take care of the fighters, and I'm not talking about just the UFC. Bellator is the same. ONE FC is the same. Every podunk organization around the country and the world, it's their responsibility to see when they see a fighter like this, especially at a level like this, suffering. You can imagine that fighters that get to this level, they don't generally fake the funk. Now, she may have tried to sell it a little bit more so that people would understand that, like, look, she was already sucked down as much as she could. She wanted the public to actually see visually in their eyes that she was not going back into that fucking sauna or that Epsom salt bath. She did not want to go back to cutting more weight, even though she probably had another 2 hours. But she was in another country where we could say a lot of things. We talked about this yesterday as well with Dwayne, and I've talked about it with Forrest Griffin and a bunch of other people as well, that fighters, when we fight overseas and we travel around the world to fight in another country, we've trained 6 to 8 weeks or 10 weeks for a fight, and then you show up and you end up in a country that you have no idea what a lot of the food is that they serve. You know, how much fat is in it, how much, if they understand that you don't want any oils or cooked with any oils, you don't want to cook it with any butter, you don't want any salt on the steak, you don't want any salt on the chicken, you don't want any of these things added to whatever it is that you're having while you're there the week of the fight, because you are on this weight cutting thing. But this is a big reason why people use Lockhart and Leith. is Lockhart and Leith actually travels, and I would imagine Mike Dolce does the same thing. They travel to the store. They travel with you. They travel to the store. They live with you the week of the fight, and they stay in your hotel, and they make all your meals from scratch. So they go to the store and they buy the broccoli and whatever they can find that they know that they can work with. They buy all these things. They bring it back to your hotel, and they usually bring like a burner, or they have a hotel that has a kitchen or something along those lines, and they make all the food there on site for you. It's all fresh and served to your table. As a fighter, that's probably one of the most amazing things to have them work with you for that. I have now, like I said, I've never worked with Mike Dolce, so I'm not exactly sure how he does it and what he does specifically, but I have worked extensively with several fights with Lockhart and Leith, and specifically Dan Leith himself. So I enjoyed having them there. They actually move into my house. They stay with me. They prepared not just for myself, but also with Cain Velasquez, DC, Luke Rockhold, Khabib, even some of the other Russian guys, Islam Makhachev, and even Abu Bakr and some of these other guys. They've also worked with them as well. So they've worked a lot of top talent. And I don't really understand the rift between the two of them. Maybe there was some slang back, some stuff being thrown back and forth, a little cat fight, I guess you could call it, between each other. My food's better than yours. No, my food's better than yours, like that kind of thing. And I'm sure there was some controversy. I think I do recall hearing some controversy from them back in the day over this whole thing when Lockhart and Leith started getting into the weight cutting thing and in the meal preps and the meal foods and the in-home care for the fighters and athletes. So all that being said, going back to the UFC is, for me, ultimately responsible for allowing her to fight, even though she was able to come out on top with the win. Who's to say that the next person will not be as lucky? Who's to say that the next person has just a shitty ass fight, looks like shit, fights like shit and everything, and then ends up not performing well, potentially could get hurt, and even further, we're not going to say that anyone's going to die from this, but I mean, someone could be seriously injured, to the point of where they may never fight again.
You're going to get so much shit for saying that it's UFC's fault.
Who is?
You're going to get so much shit online for it.
Oh, for the UFC. It was the UFC's fault. It was 100% the UFC's fault for allowing her to fight. Now, the actual responsibility to make weight, though, falls on Cynthia, okay? Whether you hire someone to do it or not, the whole thing is it's up to you to make sure that your weight is coming down, to make sure that you're not side skirting whatever it is that Lockhart and Leith is trying to get you to do. Were you drinking? Like Dwayne said yesterday, I don't know if she was eating a bag of salted peanuts the day before. You know what I mean? Like those type of things. We don't know. We don't know the details behind it all. We don't know if, they were in Argentina, if they could find food that actually they could make, or actually that they could find that to help her get her weight down. I mean, I don't know how good a shape she came into camp. I don't know, exactly what happened. It said basically what happened is I started my period this week. That explains it all to me, honestly. And so there's nothing that Lockhart and Leith could have done. There's nothing that Cynthia Calvillo could have done. I think realistically, when you, as a woman, I'm sure that a lot of these women have had to deal with this, is that you shouldn't cut it that close, I guess. Maybe you should try to get your weight down a little bit further. So when the time comes and you have to retain water and hold water because your body does that and you're on your period, then that's what you have to do. You have to always, I guess, it's unfortunate, but you have to be prepared for that, I guess, those type of things when the time comes.
She said we were kind of prepared for it because we could feel the symptoms, but unfortunately this morning when we got up, it was about 5:30 and I had 2 pounds to go. Then I couldn't cut any weight from 5:30 to 8 a.m. We tried everything and I could not break a sweat. Even when I got up to the scale, I was the same weight that I woke up at 5:30.
Yeah, and I don't doubt it, and I've heard this from a lot of girls that I've worked with that, they went to bed, they were about 2 pounds over, they woke up and they were the same. And that's pretty irregular, given that that's pretty rare, given that when you usually go to sleep, your body just burns the calories automatically. That's why people always for years have talked about floating the weight. I'm going to go home and sleep I'm going to float a pound, hopefully more if you can. I mean, there's times where I was talking with people that during camp, not during weight cut week, but during my fight camp, I'll go to bed at 171, 172, and I'll wake up 163, 164. So I'll float 5 or 6 pounds at times when I was younger, like, in my mid 20s, late 20s. I would end up floating that amount of weight. But as I got older, that didn't happen as much. But then also, too, as you get closer to your weight cut, you don't float that much because you're already kind of dehydrated down a little bit. You're that whole week, you're hydrating up as much as you can, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So you're just peeing like crazy. And you can end up floating quite a bit from Sunday to Wednesday. But when it gets like Wednesday evening, you start cutting a little bit. Thursday, you cut the most, almost all day. And for me, I break it up throughout the day. I'll wake up and probably like get a little shadow boxing in with some plastics and start getting my weight down, around 11 or 12 in the afternoon. And then in the evening, I will, I'll basically, after I do my noon training, my noon cut, I'll go back home and sleep. Maybe take a little bit of water in, get some rest, maybe try to float a pound. Then in the evening, I'll go back later in the evening, probably like around 8:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, try and cut another, 4 or 5, whatever gets me close, under the 160 pound limit, 158, 160, somewhere in there. And then I'll try and go back home and go to sleep and then float the rest of the way. Now, I will tell you this though, is that this early morning weigh-in system didn't start for me until I want to say my last 2 or 3 fights, and it was a really weird thing. So it's hard because it's hard for you to sleep, period, with when you're already down close to weight. Let's say you're walking around 156, 157, and and it's hard. It's hard, like when you're already dehydrated, you haven't eaten probably in the last 24 hours or close to, and you just can't sleep comfortably. So to wake up, and I mean, for Cynthia Calvillo, she wakes up and she's like, oh, I got 2 pounds left, and it's like 7 a.m. and she's got weigh-ins at 9 or whatever it is, or 6 a.m., and she's got 2 more hours and nothing comes off. I can tell you now, I've sat in those saunas for 30, 40 minutes and not a pound had come off, and you're just ready to like lose your fucking shit. You're looking at everyone. I mean, there was moments where, I came out and I was like in there for 20, 25 minutes and I hadn't lost anything. And I was just, and it's the most miserable 20 to 25 minutes of your life because you're just wondering like, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. You know what I mean? And so for her in this situation, there's not really anything she could have done. I mean, it's unfortunate, but had something happen, I would put all the blame on the UFC for allowing her to fight. And then secondly, I would blame Cynthia Calvillo because it comes down to her making sure that she has that cushion to try and get her weight down as much as possible when it comes fight time, and thirdly, I would end up blaming Lockhart and Leath and being like, hey, you said you could get me there, and and I paid you to get me there, and it doesn't matter. And I'm good friends with these guys, and I believe in everything they do. I actually do trust their system, and I enjoyed having them there with me. But at the end of the day, you pay someone to do a job, and they're supposed to do it. And it's no different than the UFC looking at Cynthia Calvillo saying, hey, we paid you to make weight. We paid you to fight. Go out there and fight. So I understand that, but at moments you got to pay. You see all these fighters that are commenting, all these guys with blue check marks next to their name saying, hey, this is the one I was going to bring up because you commented on this one on social media today. I saw it, and like where you were talking about, he talks about how, you're getting from 170 down to 125 for like 3 minutes and then you're back to 150 by fight day, I saw you commenting on it earlier. Like, what were you kind of touching on? I don't know. I don't recall commenting on Jared Brooks's stuff.
Okay.
But, I mean, maybe there was somebody in there that had commented and I probably talk shit back to them or something along those lines. I mean, that's kind of
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's kind of my MO, I think. Yeah, in a really weird way. I like to just when I'm bored, I like to talk shit to people online, and then like mid sentence, I'll just like bounce out and disappear. It says Jared Brooks is saying, if you guys don't know how the weight cutting process goes in the UFC, etc., what I have seen is someone cuts from 170 down to 125. They get to make weight a day before weigh-ins, and they weigh 150 by the fight night. So if you are 150 and someone actually weighs 125, is that cheating? I mean, no one really actually weighs 125 though.
Yeah, but I think he's doing like a drastic comparison. Like if we both cut to 125 and then I come in at 170 and you come in at 140, like is that cheating? Like on fight day, you know?
No, but I think look. No, it's not, because it's not in the rules. And fighters have known that we've done this for years. And that's the thing. And the same thing with wrestling, the same thing with boxing, same thing now with MMA. We've done it for years. And so it's not really considered cheating. Now, let's just say you could do what Floyd Mayweather has done for years. He's fought guys like Margarito where he said, hey, I'm going to fight you at 147. And guess what? I think he did the same thing with Oscar De La Hoya. And you cannot exceed this weight by fight day. So sure, we weigh in the day before. We weighed in both at 147. But by the time we fight, you cannot weigh more than 152, 153, whatever it was, for them. We could start doing that. And I actually suggested that to the California Athletic Commission when I sat in on one of their meetings. And I can tell you that they are just fucking oblivious to what's going on. They have no concept, no clue of what is going on. And I can tell you now that there's a girl that was on that board. When I was sitting there waiting to go through my appeal for the Patricky headbutt that I felt like was a headbutt that cost me the fight against him, I was listening to her talk beforehand, and she says, yeah, what's this new thing that we're doing where we're letting fights go on, that there's open hand striking, it's really has grappling and stuff, there's no actual fist punching, it's all open hand striking. And I was like, yo, chick, that's called pancreation. That's kind of like the origination of this whole sport. And she had no clue what the hell she was talking about. And so when it comes down to all these things, I feel that it's not cheating when someone makes the weight and then they move on. But I think there is something that needs to be done. I would love to see every 10 pounds, and you can't exceed the next weight class above you. And if you do, then there's a huge deduction in the fighter. Then that's when you can start taking, your purse. I mean, I don't see any other way. I think that would be one of the best ways to make sure. And then also, too, you allow multiple weight class champions. That stirs the pot. And if you can think about it, and I'm using this as an example, is if we had a 155, we have every 10 pounds. Really just got to add 165, and now we've got it every 10 pounds until we hit 205. So it goes 185 to 205 is the 15-pound, jump, and then it goes to heavyweight. But the reason why they have that, and the reason why they should have that, is because the talent at that level is so thin already. There's not a whole lot of people at those weight classes, because all those people that fight at those weight classes are already playing football and baseball and making millions of dollars. So those people, sure, we have a lot of top athletes in the top organizations that fight MMA, but let's be honest and let's be real. A lot of the better athletes, or a lot of the best athletes are guys that were able to play football and basketball and in other sports, that are just significantly bigger in the bigger weight classes. I think when you get to 170 and below, we have the best athletes, I think, in the world, 100%. When you start getting up in above 170, you start watering down the athleticism that we have available to us in fighting. So I think that when we get to, I think if you do it every 10 pounds, you really take away, or you really give the opportunity to have multiple champions. And I'm just going to use it for instance. You have the opportunity to have, let's just say Conor stays at 55, Khabib goes to 65, and you got T. Wood and Ben Askren or whoever else at that weight class. You know what I mean? You have the opportunity to have Patricio fighting at 135, 145, and then you have, Patricky and Chandler and some of the other guys at 155, and then you have a chance to have Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler, or Roy McDonald and whoever else at 170. You know what I mean? Like Douglas Lima. You have options to have guys at 175, 155, 165, 175. Guys that would like to fight in multiple weight classes, have multiple champions, and you have the opportunity to have a fighter who has multiple belts, which attracts more money and which attracts more pay-per-views, and the ability is there. I think that opens up a lot better things for all the promotions that decide to do that. When you start talking about I think when you do the every 10 pounds, there's less chance of them getting hurt. I've talked to the commission about it, and I said, look, there's less chances of people not making weight because now that it's every 10 pounds, they'll try to fight within that time, within that period. The other thing, too, is when I sat in the commission meeting, they had a doctor in there, and the doctor kept telling me there's not any actual physical proof or studies that have shown that a fighter actually performs better. It's actually the reverse, that a fighter fights worse or doesn't have the same abilities if he didn't cut as much weight. Well, if that's the case, then why do people continue to cut weight? You want to know why? Because fighting is I would say 90 to 95% mental. If you can sit in a sauna and make the weight and get the weight down as much as you possibly can, you know that when you get into that fight, you're going to feel bigger, stronger, faster. You're going to feel like you did everything you possibly could mentally to get to this fight. And then when you step in there mentally, you're thinking to yourself, dude, I did everything. I made weight. I'm on point. Like my camp was good. I suffered all this time to do it and I did it. Now there's one person's going to pay. It's the person that's across the cage from me. That person's going to pay. And I think it happens, man. I think mentally it makes you feel like there is no one that can beat you. And so when the doctor came in and told me that, which was a doctor, obviously, so he's never actually fought a day in his life, maybe with his mother over the computer. But, those type of things, like, Mom, you didn't go get milk today, so yeah, that kind of stuff, but when all those type of things happen, when the doctor tries to tell me that, I'm like, well, you won't understand. It's a mental thing. It's 100% mental. It's the feeling that you're unstoppable. And I think that's what comes from cutting weight. It's the mental aspect of knowing that you can accomplish it. Knowing that you fought through that miserable sauna or those Epsom salt baths or whatever it is, or whatever way it is that you cut weight. That I think 100% makes you feel a lot more stronger mentally when you step into that cage. But I mean, overall, to talk about it, I mean, the Cynthia Calvillo thing, to roll back on that, it's the UFC's fault for allowing her to fight, because what happens if she would have seriously got injured? It's Cynthia Calvillo, and I would even blame a little bit on Lockhart and Leith, that it's their responsibility to be ready and prepared for something like this to happen, especially if you're going to work with females. Those type of things are going to happen, and you should be prepared for that as a company to represent your client the best you can. Now, as far as with Mike Dolce, look, dude, you've been out of the game for a little bit. I have nothing but respect for you. I've heard a lot of good things about you from multiple fighters. I feel that at a moment like that, I don't know what your guys' issue is between Lockhart and Leith and Mike, but the issue is that you really shouldn't be trying to kick people when they're down. Obviously they're not happy with it, but I mean, they also do work with a ton of other fighters that are involved in, on that show, not just that show, but also other shows around, they've been involved with multiple fighters around. And so when you actually start looking at the numbers of how many that they actually did not make weight, I would say would be like 4 to 5, maybe even less, so I do recall them working with like 11 fighters or 12 fighters on one card. I mean, that's pretty insane. Sometimes I think there was one, I want to say I even heard them saying they worked with 14 fighters on one card. That's insane. That means you're working with one and then the other person's opponent. You're on both sides of the fence, and I do know that they're very professional with how they handle things. So it's a setback, man. I mean, realistically, it is a setback. It's unfortunate that it happened, but it happened. There's nothing you can do about it, and that being said, I felt like there was no reason for them to both get into it like that. But hey, man, everyone has their drama. I mean, I'm definitely one to talk.
I know Dana said this back in June, but it's been kind of, there's not been much movement on it. But as far as going back to 4 p.m. weigh-ins, do you think that there's anything to be said for doing that decision making?
I mean, for me, I feel like the morning ones, I don't know. Maybe they're working. Maybe they feel better. I don't know what it is. Are you talking about the pay-per-view numbers? Are you talking about like what is it?
Just like the extra time, maybe. I'm
telling you now, like to try to go to sleep being only 2 pounds overweight is miserable. So some of these guys are like, you know what? I'll just cut it in the morning. And they wake up and they're like, oh, I didn't float as much as I thought. Oh, then they try to make weight. I mean, knowing that, hey, I got it, like. You're also too. It's like been it's only been what, a year and a half that they've been doing this whole 10 a.m. weigh-ins. The problem is that it's just they're having to host 2 weigh-ins. There's no reason for it. Sure, the fighters probably would like to do it, this way, but a lot of them are still having a hard time adjusting to the fact that like they don't know how to do it the night before, knowing that they got to get up and weigh in by 9 to 10.
Yeah.
Not all of them have figured it out. And it's not the easiest thing to like cut all the weight the night before and then try to get some sleep. And then you're thinking about food all night. I mean, and this is no joke. And I'll tell a story real quick. I was like probably I'd say about 5 over, maybe 6 over. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I almost felt like I was dreaming. And I just walked straight to the fridge, grabbed the orange juice and just started chugging it. And
You actually did, or you drank?
No, I actually did.
Oh.
But I thought I was dreaming. And I woke as soon as I removed that bottle, the
cap,
the milk carton from my mouth, like the the juice cap from my lips. I was like, "What the fuck did you just do?" It was like my moment of like weakness. I don't know what it was, what happened, but it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and I just woke up and just walked downstairs and didn't even. It wasn't even like a second thought. I didn't even think about it. I just opened the fridge, grabbed the orange juice, took the cap off, and just started drinking it right from the carton. And it wasn't like, gulp, gulp, dude, what are you doing? Stop. It was like, gulp, 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 gulp. I mean, I must have drank maybe close to half of that thing.
Wow.
And and I woke up, as soon as I removed the carton from my mouth, I was like, what the fuck did you just do? Shit. But I mean, I was able to wait.
Before weigh-in?
This was the night before weigh-in, and I was like, I was still probably about 5 or 6 over, So I mean, that right there probably put on, I would say, at least a half pound to a pound. Probably about a half pound.
And how long's that cut for?
I mean, a half pound could take you. It depends. It really could take you. I mean, if you're still 6 over, you still have some hydration in you. So. Realistically, it probably took me like, 30, 40 minutes in the sauna. I mean, half pound to a pound, depending on how well I broke my sweat right off the bat. But I mean, I just remember that. I don't remember. I do recall that the rest of my weight cut, for that fight was pretty easy. But it just was in my mind, like, man, I can't believe you just broke. You're such a piece of shit. I thought about it. I was like, dude, like if you don't make weight, it's your fucking fault. Like and I was thinking to myself, like, you're weak, dude. You're mentally weak. You couldn't say no. And I actually didn't even think, it wasn't a moment where I stopped and said, like, what are you doing? Until after I had already drank all the orange juice.
It's kind of like one of those things where you're dreaming and you can't tell if it's a dream or you're actually awake.
It was.
Yeah.
It was until that orange juice actually hit my stomach and it woke me up and I was like, oh, wow, you're full. I was like, you're full. Like you just drank a shitload of orange juice. I was like, holy shit. But then the other thing as well is like you don't want to drink sugar, and orange juice is just packed with sugar, because it makes it harder for you to make the weight. The sugar just attaches to you and you just can't get it off.
Do you think the upside to like early weigh-ins though is that you've got the rest of the day to recover?
I mean, you have pretty much the rest of the night and the rest of the next day, and it's like,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I do recall in most of my fights, I would make weight just fine, and by that, I would weigh in by 4 or 5 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock, I was already back up to 170.
You've never done the early weigh-in, have you?
Never did. No, I did. Yeah, I did.
Your last fight?
Did. No, my last 2 fights was early weigh-ins. Yeah, my last 2 fights was early weigh-ins.
Did you have a preference?
I actually prefer the later weigh-ins. The reason why I prefer, like I was saying, I prefer the later weigh-ins because it's hard to sleep. It's hard, like you're dehydrated, you're starving, and if you ever try going to bed, be hungry, it sucks, man. Like you just can't sleep. You're tossing and turning, and then not to mention just the weight of the fight is on your shoulders. You're thinking about the fight. You're thinking that you're hungry. You're thinking that you're thirsty as all hell. There's so many things. You just can't get comfortable. You're just tossing and turning all night. I mean, it's one of the hardest things. That's why it's easier, I think, for the later weigh-ins. I would go to bed like 6-7 pounds still to make, but I wasn't like sucked in so much. I was walking around 72. I'd cut like the day before on, let's say, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday I would cut all the way down to like 62. And then I'd go home and, eat, like sip a little bit of water and eat, shower, sleep a little bit, like tiny food. And then I'd wake up and I basically had lost like another 1.5 pounds, sometimes 2 pounds. So I was already down to 160, and then I'd show up to the sauna or the Epsom salt bath like to make weight, or I'd shadow box in the morning at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. You know, at AKA when the fighters were all working out, we would all just shadow box for an hour and be like, oh, boom, an hour of shadow boxing, you know, moving around with some friends, you know, just play kicking and stuff. I mean, I was pretty much on weight, 5-6 pounds in an hour, hour and a half. I was ready to go, you know. So that, and then I would just float the rest until weigh-in. So I had a routine. And I think a lot of these fighters have had a routine for so long that now when you have the early weigh-ins, it kind of breaks up their routine. Like, oh shit, well, fuck, I think I'm close. No, I'm not. I think I'm, you know, so it's, you don't know. They're hoping, I think, to float more than their actual body is capable of. And then when they show up, they're like, shit, I'm still 2.5 pounds over. And I have an hour to make the weight and I'm sucked in already. Fuck, what do I do? So that they put themselves in this situation, but in all fairness, I think there's a couple different things that are throwing them off. Is the change of the weigh-ins, the routine of what they used to do, you know, and all sorts of other things, you know, that go along with it. You know,
it's crazy, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's enough blame to go around for everyone, you know. But we are here, and we're getting ready to hit 2019, and dude, you guys got to get your shit together, man. Like, you can't let people that do that, and fighters need to know. Like, I don't know if she was serious about, like, she couldn't even hold herself up, but if she wasn't, that's kind of a dumb move to do because she could potentially end up not fighting. If she was in the States, they probably would have said, no, you can't, you're not able to fight. And then you would have been out your money altogether. You know, so you got to still pay Lockhart and Leith. You got to still pay your trainers maybe or potentially or whatever it was. And then now you have no fight. So then what? You know, so you got to be careful doing that kind of stuff if she was serious. If she was serious, and then it just puts, you know, a lot of the moment or a lot of the pressure on the UFC. Like, hey, you're letting some girl fight that could barely stand up on the scale. That's a no-no, man. I mean, I'm surprised the commissions here won't reprimand them for something like that. You know, like, hey, we're watching you closely. If we see something like that happen, no way, you're not fighting. You know, and that falls on the organization. It goes. There's plenty of blame, like I said, to go around. And obviously everyone's going to come at me hard. They're going to come at me hard in the paint, being like, oh, the UFC had nothing to do with it. If she would have got hurt, the UFC would have had a lot to do with it. You know? And I'd be up here saying the same shit if it was Bellator, if it was ONE FC. 100%. You know, so 100%. 100%. Yeah. Then moving on, let's see what else is next.
Nick Diaz March something for UFC 235 against Jorge Masvidal.
It's gonna be a great fight if they actually do get it put together. Look, Nick's been out for what, 4 years? Yeah, it's been 4 years, man.
2015.
I mean, how old is he?
He's 35.
Yeah. He's going to need one more. He need one more good one. I don't know if Masvidal is the one for him. George is fucking tough. You know, not only that, but the one thing, in George, he may stand with him the whole time. I don't think George needs to. But George has got good boxing, decent kicks. Nick Diaz, they both are susceptible to kicks. But the one thing people completely underestimate with George is his wrestling. His wrestling is fucking nasty good. He's strong, he's good, he's tall, he's long, he's lanky, he's got power, he's got good hands, tight boxing. The kid's legit, man. And the 4-year layoff with Nick, I don't think that we're gonna see the same Nick that we would have saw with George. George's 34, but George's been an active 34. You know, I think Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz are great for the sport, but I think that they're hindering kind of their performance and their abilities by taking so much time off. I mean, I think it's good that they're doing what they're doing as far as, look, they're not taking as much damage, but as time goes on, you know, you lose the rhythm of the fight. You lose the pace of the fight. You just don't get that you don't get by not fighting. That's the thing. You can't spar as hard as you're forced to fight. So that's something that I think that needs to be talked about. You know, as far as with the Diaz brothers, you know, I think that it was very unfortunate that Nate didn't fight Dustin Poirier, because Dustin Poirier was a great fight for him and a good matchup for him. And it was a 50-50 draw for both of them. And you didn't have to worry about Dustin Poirier taking Nate Diaz down and just trying to hold him down. You know, some of these other guys, that's kind of what they would rely on. So there's a lot of things I think. But look, for me, I really don't think this fight's going to happen. I don't see it coming to fruition. I don't see it being put together. I think something's going to end up, you know, in the middle of it all, and I don't think it's going to happen. So, I would like to see Nick back. I don't know if it's going to happen, and I don't understand why he would potentially fight I don't understand why he would potentially fight George, you know. Because, I mean, we're just watching the clip of Nick when he laid down against Anderson Silva. And look at, he's doing the whole Anderson Silva thing where he runs to the fence. It's like, come on, come fight me. You know? And it's just funny, man. This guy, like, it was just funny. Man. Would have loved it. I would have liked to have really seen them fight. Like, because they just, that fight had so much, so it had the ability to be a huge, like, amazing fight. It just didn't live up to it because of, neither one of them really pulled the trigger. Nick wanted to get in there and bang. Anderson Silva was coming off of, I want to say his loss, and he just didn't want to. I don't think he wanted to take a chance of getting knocked out again, especially by Nick. So would have loved to have seen that fight live up to the potential that it had. But good shit, man. Good shit. I would have loved it.
Who won that originally before they overturned it?
Anderson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Anderson. I think this is the fight that Anderson tested hot for.
I think and then Nick did for weed as well, right? This is the one that gave him the 5-year suspension.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
This is like his third. This was his third weed suspension that they gave him 5 years for. Remember they overturned it? Yeah, it's fucked.
I guess Trump just passed some law about how the non-violent offenders now will get less time in jail, or they'll be able to get out on like a lot earlier release and thing. I don't know. I had to read it and see exactly what the bill was that they signed, but I mean it's gonna get to the point where professional athletes should be allowed to use it instead of basically having to be used opioids, which is just Vicodin, OxyContin, things like that. I mean, it's just stupid for them to have to do that stuff. Man, Nick, I'm actually getting excited just watching Nick fight right now. Love it, dude. Love it. He's talking shit to Anderson the whole time right there as they're walking back to the corner. I mean, all things, between Nate and I, he obviously doesn't like me anymore, but I have nothing but respect for both of them, and I love watching these guys fight. And, we came up with the same circuit with Strikeforce, and definitely enjoy watching these guys fight, man. Fun to watch, especially Nick, man. And Nate as well, but I mean, Nick and I were kind of around the same era, time, and things like that in the UFC, the first stint, and then also to the UFC or the Strikeforce during that time as well. Great stuff, man.
I'm gonna try and go back out to Nate's or Nate and Nick's academy with Stan. I'll take him a Sammy in the Punk t-shirt.
yeah. Careful, you don't get beat up out there.
They're actually really good guys, man.
No, they are, man. They are. And I've never had an issue with them outside of the fact that I had to fight Nate. I never had an issue with them at all. So.
I was there right before he fought Connor for the second time, and I was talking to Nate a little bit, and he's looking at me when he heard me talk, and he's like, "You from Ireland, motherfucker?" I was like, "No, I'm from Scotland." He's like, all right, we good.
You from Ireland? That's so funny. Yeah, those are really like our hot topics for Punk's opinion this week. I think that's pretty much it, man. I mean, we didn't really have a whole lot to talk about.
No.
We will cover the Bellator Tel Aviv with Patricio Pitbull and Emmanuel Sanchez. That was a fucking amazing fight. So if you haven't watched it or you DVR'd it, make sure you tune in and watch that. And then also too with the fights last night. What was his name? I can't even say his name. Pontapizio or something like that.
Oh, the dude.
The guy that beat Neil Magny.
Yeah.
So Neil Magny's tough, man. I mean, you got him quick and often with those low level kicks, and man, it was good.
You got Floyd back on.
We got Floyd saying he's making the rules, my place, my time, all this stuff. You actually even called out Khabib and said the same thing. Look, it's my rules. I make all the whatever. He makes all the stipulations. So, look, Khabib's somebody who's like we saw his last fight. We saw what he did in the stands afterwards. He don't give a fuck. Okay, he will fight you in boxing. He will fight you in your mama's house, in your mama's basement. He don't give a shit on your corner. He does not care. Okay, so but Floyd is still, I guess, a matter of fact. I think the RIZIN 14 for New Year's Eve in the rule set is revealed. I guess is supposed to be revealed here shortly. So we are see. It will be apparently just boxing, no kicks. So we'll see what happens, man. I mean, neither win or loss goes on each other's records. It's basically going to be a work. and I've said this from the beginning, they'll probably end up going to a draw. One person will hit one person, the other person will hit one person. Like they'll basically exchange punches in a smoker type sparring session. It'll be a little bit harder than a sparring session, but it'll be more of a smoker where nothing actually counts on your record.
Yeah, it says that one, yeah.
Yeah. But you are in Japan, and those dudes, like Floyd, you don't want to piss them dudes off, man. You may never come home. Your money can't buy you a ride home, bro, out of there. So you may be in trouble. I don't know. Who knows, man? Like those are things that you gotta be careful for. You better make sure you have the right management and the right team to take you over there, buddy. So I'm just letting you know. But good stuff. Thank you for joining me here with Punk's Opinion. Gave us our quick breakdown. If you haven't already checked out, we had Chuck Liddell on last Monday. We also are dropping our episode with Mind Pump coming out
probably later this week.
Probably a day this week. If you haven't checked out their podcast is freaking amazing. Talk a lot about food, nutrition, as well as fitness and health. So they are one of the bombest and most controversial fitness and health podcasts out there right now, if not the bombest.
Do you follow Sal on Instagram?
Yes, I do follow Sal.
Funny,
he's so controversial. I love it, man. He does not give a fuck.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's funny, man. I do enjoy Just for My Pump and Adam and those guys. All these guys, those guys are just amazing. They have a great team, amazing group. We did a thing where I actually interviewed them, or they actually interviewed me, and then they posted that on there. So check out my episode with them, Mind Pump, on their Mind Pump iTunes. You can go there and listen to it, as well as you can. Then we turned around, Sammy and I turned around with producer Dave. We interviewed them. So you can get the feedback on how they got started, how they're doing, their numbers, and all the things that they're doing to help educate people into what's best for them, fitness-wise, health-wise, and all different types of stuff. So check out our interview with them. That'll launch sometime this week. Yeah. I would say probably either like Tuesday, probably Monday night or Tuesday morning, or something like that.
Yeah, depending on when we put out, because we're going to film with Sammy tomorrow as well.
Yeah, so we're going to film with Sam Diggity also tomorrow for Sammy and the Punk. And, hey, you're here with Punk's Opinion. So check us out. We have a lot dropping this week, and we'll work on some other stuff as well. So thanks for joining me. Check me out at The Real Punk on IG, Twitter. Hit the subscribe button. Please go to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button there. Share it with friends. Send it over to them. If you like some of the stuff and the shit that we talk, just send it out to people and let them hit the subscribe button too. Just send it all around, man. We're looking to get our numbers up as well, and we hear a lot of good things and comments from people. But I definitely want to make sure that we get our numbers up. All right, we're doing well. Things are going on. We're gaining ground.
Two fan questions that came in today. Just if you want to do it real quick.
Yeah, let's do it real quick. We'll do some quick fan questions.
Will you ever invite podcast fan on your show?
No.
Wow, that's clear and simple. Did you have any major injuries during your career? Also,
my whole career was injuries.
Also, if so, what did you do to keep a good mindset? Okay,
so I did have a lot of injuries. I tore like a scaphoid and lunate, the tendon or the ligament between my scaphoid and lunate bone in my hand, in my wrist. So I had to have surgery on my wrist there. The biggest injury that I actually tore my labrum in my shoulder right before I fought Gilbert Melendez the first time to win the lightweight title. When I fought him, before I fought him the second time, after I beat him the first time, I had broke my fibula sparring with Billy Evangelista. We were sparring. I broke my fibula in doing sparring. It was my last hard sparring session before I was supposed to fight him for the second time, Gilbert the second time. And there was no doubt in my mind that I would have beat him had I fought him the second time while I was healthy and everything. I only had one more week left of training. It wasn't even a week. It was like I had 2 days left of training. It was my last hard sparring session. And Billy just so happened to try and jump up onto my back and slid off and landed on and fell back onto my ankle and broke my ankle. And then what made that worse was I ended up because I needed surgery. So I didn't break my fibula. What happened was it was like a spiral fracture. And so they had to put 9 screws in. So I have a plate and 9 screws in my ankle. And then not only having a plate and 9 screws into my ankle, what happened was every time after I tried getting ready for him for the next 18 months to fight him, because we had rebooked the fight several times, every time I was getting ready and I was into camp, almost like 2 or 3 weeks out from the fight, there was a couple times where I kicked with it, and I actually kicked it at someone's elbow, and it re-broke the bone above the plate. So every time I kicked the bone, wherever the plate was, wherever the bone had ended at the plate, I would break the bone above the plate. So to give you an idea, right? If you take a piece of metal and you nail it to like a piece of wood, and then that metal, what you do is you pull the excess wood over the top of it, and you try to break that piece of wood over the top of the plate, and that's what happened every single time. So for almost 18 months, I had broke my leg 2 more times after that. So I broke it the original time, got the plate and the 9 screws put in my ankle, and then 2 more times after that, I broke my ankle just getting ready for fights with Gilbert Melendez.
And that was like right around the time you were 30, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was actually just turned 30, yep. Then one of the injuries, which is not really that bad of an injury, I had fought Adam Lynn, and I want to say I was just turning 30. I'd fought Adam Lynn, and when I had fought Adam Lynn, after I had fought him that night, I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and my back had went out on me on my 30th birthday, which was funny. And we had actually just fought at the Playboy Mansion, so it was like one of my all-time favorite shows to fight at. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
That's right, Playboy Mansion. I remember asking you about that.
Yeah, I fought there twice.
Yeah,
I fought Ash Bowman there the first time, and then I fought Adam Lynn the second time, or maybe it was vice versa.
It was the other way around.
Yeah, it was the other way around. There you go. Yeah. See, I've been hit too much. You know. But yeah, if you guys also too, if you guys, I'm actually gonna ask you guys this, all you guys and fans and stuff that are following the YouTube, if you guys can go through any of my old footage of my fights, and if you guys would please send me any type of like highlight videos or anything you guys put together with any of the old YouTube fight clips that I have, either fighting Gilbert or anybody or anyone that I've ever fought. There's some old Pride videos that I had fought on, against Daisuke Sugie, even Kawajiri, things like that. So any footage you guys can get, if you guys could put together some highlight videos, I'd much appreciate it. I never really had put any of them together for myself, and so if you guys are willing to do that, I'd really appreciate it. And go ahead and tag me in them, link them to us, and we'll put them up on our YouTube channel as well. Try and get that all out there. So I really do appreciate it. And hey, thanks for listening. Late.